Hello and welcome back, viewers. Today we have something incredibly exciting to talk about for all of you Excel enthusiasts out there. Microsoft has recently introduced a powerful new function that is going to change the way you work with your data, and that is the filter function. In this video, we are going to dive deep into what the filter function is, how it works, and show you some practical examples to help you master this amazing tool. So without further much ado, let's get started. The filter function in Excel allows you to filter a range of data based on criteria you define. It's incredibly versatile and can be used in various scenarios, whether you are managing large data sets, analyzing sales figures, or organizing inventory. The filter function is your new best friend. Let's jump right in and see how it works. Now, the filter function takes in three inputs or three arguments. Okay, the range, the include, and then the if empty. Just three. The range is the range of cells that you want to filter. And then the include, here you specify the criteria that the data must meet to be included in your results. And then the if empty, which is an optional input or optional parameter, allows you to specify a value or array to return if no result is found. So let's take a look at an example. On your screen, you can see a list of 15 countries, their continents, and then their population. So our goal here is to use the filter function to filter all the records that are on the continent of North America. Okay, on your screen, you can see we have 1, 2, 3 countries coming from North America. But then how do we use the filter function to filter all these records? Okay, so let's start. And then so in the first cell here, we are going to start with the word filter. So equal to filter. And then the first argument or the first input is the array. And let me move the tooltip down here so that you can see it well. And so we need the array where our answer is coming from. So go ahead and select this array here. Okay, this is it's just a list of 15 countries, but it could be thousands, it could even be millions that you are trying to filter from. Okay, this is just an example, so I just made it 15. So we specify the array and then put in our comma. And then the include is the criteria that we are going to use to filter. So what is the include? So we are going to include all the continents that equates to North America. So I'm going to select the continent, and then I can put it in the equal to North America, but then I have the North America input in the cell here, so it's wise for me to just click in that cell, which is cell I2, and it's equal to North America. And then there's a third argument. When you look at the inputs, there is a third argument which says if empty, and it's optional. And so I'm going to exclude that for now and just close my parentheses. And then you notice that it has filtered only the countries in North America. Okay. For instance, if I go and select the country of Asia, it filters only the countries coming from Asia from this big list on the left. Okay. Now let's take a look at what happens. For instance, if somebody wants to filter all the countries from the continent named, let's say, Virginia, there's no continent named Virginia. So if you decide to use Virginia here, and then so you go back into the formula and you say, let the continent, which is C4 to C18, be equal to Virginia. And then you close it. What happens? It comes up with a calculation error, a calc error. So in case of error, what do you want to show? For instance, if you want to show, let's say, not found, that is where the third argument comes in. You go back to the formula and you put in a comma, and then you have the if empty. So if this is empty, and for that matter, you are getting a calc error, you go in and put in your default value here, which is not found. You put put it in parentheses because it's a text. And then you just click on the enter key. So you notice that in case that continent doesn't exist, okay, Virginia is not a continent. In case Virginia, the continent doesn't exist, it returns not found. So that does it for our first example. Now let's take a look at our next example. So in this example, we are going to look at filtering using multiple criteria. Okay, so this is going to be an introduction of the AND operator, which uses the star to represent the AND in Excel. So in this example, we want to filter for countries in Europe with population greater than 70 million. So we are having multiple criteria, 2 criteria specifically. So we have the continent is equal to Europe and population is equal to 70 million. So I'm going to start writing the formula and starting with the AND. So putting the field equal to the filter. Open the parentheses, and then we specify the array. The array is going to be the whole set of data. And then we have the comma, and then the first criteria and the second criteria are going to be put in their own parentheses. So I'm going to begin the parentheses for the continent. So the continent, I'm going to select the column for continent, and that should be equal to Europe. Europe is a text, so I'm going to put it in its quotation mark. So Europe, and then we close it, and then we bring the end, which is star, is the end, open parentheses for the second criteria to follow, and that is the population is greater than 70 million. Which is 70 million. You close the second criteria, and then you close the filter function as well. So we bring the next criteria, and then so we click on OK, and then you notice that it has filtered the 2 countries, which is Germany and Russia, in Europe, and they have a population of more than 70 million, and you can see them highlighted here in the source table. So that does it for our example number 2. Let's take a look at example number 3. So in this example, we are going to take a look at filtering with date criteria. On your screen, you can see a list of countries with the name of the country, the continent, the population, and the independence date. So the goal of this example is to filter all the countries with independence date falling between January 1st, 1950 and June 3rd, 1966. For the sake of simplicity, I've put the end date or the date in different cells. So I have the January 1st, 1950 in the cell right here in cell J17, and then right beneath that cell I have the June 3rd, 1966. So let's go ahead and write this formula, and it starts as usual with equal to filter, and then the array. The array is our data source. We select all of them, and then we put in comma, and I'm going to put in criteria using the AND operator, okay, or the asterisk operator. So I'm going to put the first one in parentheses. So we want to filter for all records with date, which is the independent date, greater or equal to January 1st, 1950, and then you close it, and then we bring the asterisk, which is the AND operator. Again, we go back and select the date less than or equal to June 3rd, 1966, and then you close it, and then close the filter function as well. So you notice that it has filtered all the countries with independence date falling between January 1st, 1950 and June 3rd, 1966. And then you can just verify for yourself all these countries have their independence between those 2 dates. So that is the end of this example of demonstrating the usage of the filter function with criteria date. Let's go to the next example, example number 4. In this example 4, we are going to take a look at the OR operator, which is normally shortened with a plus, unlike the AND, which is an asterisk. This is an OR operator. So again, we have the table of countries, the continent and the population and the independence date. And our goal here is to find or filter the records with population less than 20 million or population more than 200 million. So we are going to start as usual with the filter function. Again, looking at the tooltip here, we need the array. So the array is a list of all the records. And then we put in our comma. And then the next is include. Include what? Include population less than 20 million or population more than 200 million. So we select the population column, the population. Again, we have to put it in each criteria in the parentheses. And I'm talking about the include here. So because we have multiple criteria, so we start with a parenthesis. So the population, which is D4 to D18, is less than 20 million. So we put in our 20 million, and then we close it. Or, so the word or is a plus, okay? Or again, population greater than 200 million. And we close it. And the last thing is to close the filter function as well. And then we press the enter key. And then you notice that it has filtered all the countries with population less than 20 million or population more than 200 million. And then again, the or uses what? A plus. It's an operator. And then you can verify for yourself all these countries here have their population either more than 200 million or less than 20 million. So that's it for our example. Let's jump right into the next example, example number 5. In this example, we are going to take a look at how to filter out duplicates in a data set. Okay, on the left-hand side, you can see country, population, and independence date, and each row has a record number. So some of the rows are duplicates of each other. So what we want to do is to filter out those duplicates, okay? So we are going to use a combination of the filter function and then the count if with an S, count ifs function. The two of them, we're going to combine them to filter out the duplicates. So let's start writing our formula. As usual, it begins with the filter function. And then what are we trying to filter? We want to filter all the data set or all the records in place. And then next, we use the count if with an S. Okay, the count ifs function. Count if with an S, count ifs function. So again, look at the count ifs function and look at the tooltip for the count if function. It's requiring what? A criteria range as well as a criteria. So the countries should appear more than once. The population should appear more than once. That is for the same record. And then the independence date should appear more than once in order for it to qualify as a duplicate. So for the count if with an S function, we need a criteria range. So we need the criteria range, which is the country criteria. And then we know the next one is the criteria. So for the criteria range of countries, we need the criteria. So we'll go back and select the same set of countries again, comma. Or we go to the next, which is the criteria range 2, which is the population. That is the range on which we are going to apply the criteria, comma. And what is the criteria itself, which is criteria 2, is the same column, okay? Or the independence day, which is criteria range 3. That is the range on which we are going to apply the independence day criteria. And then the comma. And then we have the criteria itself, which is the Independence Day. So all these criteria that we have selected, close the parentheses, we want all of them to be more than one at the same time. So greater than one for it to qualify as a duplicate. And then we'll go ahead and close the filter function. Once you close the filter function, press the enter key, and then you notice that it has filtered all the records in place. So record number 4 and record number 9 are duplicates, and you can see that. Record number 4 and record number 9 are duplicates. So Morocco right here, and then Morocco again right here, they are duplicates. They are duplicates in terms of the country, the population, and the Independence Day. I did not put record number in the countifs function because I wanted you to see the record numbers that are duplicates. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this example number 5, and then we'll dive right into example number 6. In this example, we are going to take a look at the same data set with record number, country, continent, and population. And our goal here is to filter out the blanks. And when you look at the data set, and when you look at number 7, it has no country. Record number 9 has no continent. Record number 11 has no population, and record number 15 has no continent and population. So our goal here is to filter out all the blanks. If any record has a blank value, we'll just filter them out. So our result is going to be all the records that have data or has value for country, continent, and population. So let's go ahead and write the formula. So it's going to be equal to filter. So again, looking at the tooltip here, we will need the array. The array is going to be the entire data set, comma, and then we need include. The include is a criteria that we have to write. The criteria is that we don't want country to have blank or and country to have continent, and then we don't also want country to have population that are blanks. So we're going to start with put the criteria in parentheses. So open the parentheses. So we don't want country, and close it, or bring the not equal to. A not equal to is a less than and greater sign at the same time. Okay, not equal to blank, and blank is an empty quotation mark, open and close. We don't want this, and close it. And then also, we don't want the continent to be blank. Okay, continent, remember, also has to be in its own parentheses. So it should not be equal to blank. Close it. And remember, there's always the asterisk or the star. And the population not equal to blank. And this time around, I'm just going to add the last argument, if empty, okay, for the sake of illustration. So I'm going to put in the comma, and then I need the if empty. If empty, what do you want to see? You want to see no results. You can put whatever you want here. It's a text, so we put there's no results, and then we close the filter as the last step, and then press the enter key. So we realize that this formula that I have in cell H4 has filtered out all the blanks. So you see, when you look here, row number 7 is not here, is missing. Row number 9 is missing. And then row number 11 is also missing. When we look at it, it has a population to be blank, it's missing. and then 13 is missing, and of course 15 has both continent and population missing, so 15 is missing in the output. So you see how to filter out blanks. So that brings us to the end of example 6. Our next example is going to be example 7. In this example, we are going to take a look at filtering cells containing specific text. So again, we have a table on the left-hand side, the data set having first name, last name, sex, and age. So we want to filter all the records or all the rows having the text son in the last name. So if the last name contains son, we want to filter only those records. And you can see them highlighted. We have Wilson, has son in it. And we have Johnson, we have Anderson, we have Arsenet, Hansen, and Jefferson. They all have son, son, at some point in the name. So how do we filter for only records that satisfy this criteria of having son in the last name? So we are going to use a combination of functions. We are going to use about 3 functions, including the filter function, to achieve this objective. So let's go ahead and start writing. And I'm going to write this function in stages so that it becomes clearer. So the first thing is that we want to search for the word son in the last names. So we are going to use a function called search. So equal to search. And then when you look at the tooltip, it says what? Search returns the number of the character at which a specific character or text string is first found, reading left to right, and it's not case sensitive. So the search function looks for the text that you put in there in the cell or in the range of cells. So I'm going to put in the tab. So I'm going to start with the word search. And then the first thing, when you look at the tooltip that the search is looking for the text you want to find. So find text. You want to find text, son. So I just went in and clicked in cell J2 because that is where the son is. And then you put in the comma. And then the next thing is within text. Where do you want to find the son? You want to find son in the last name. So I'm going to select the whole of the last name. So column. So I'm going to select all the last names. And then there's an argument start number, which is optional. If you don't put anything there, it's going to start finding or searching for the text starting from the first character of the cell value. So I'm going to ignore the start number and then just close it. So you notice that something is being done here. Okay. For row number 1, we have a value error. It means there is no son in that name. The second one, also there's no son in that name. But then when you look at this one, has a number. Actually, it says 4. How do we get the 4? When you go all the way to the left, Wilson, the son occurs on character number 4. Okay, so WIL, and then it's 3, and then S is 4. So son occurs in position number 4. Again, when you go down, again to Johnson, it says it occurs in position number 5. Let's go and check. Johnson, son is on letter number 5. It starts from position number 5 in Johnson. So with this in mind, I'm going to start writing the next stage of the formula, which is what? We are only interested in the one that have numbers because they are the only last names that has son in them. So they have numbers. All the others don't have numbers. So how do we do that? We want to check if it is a number. If it is a number, we want it. If it is not a number and it's like showing this hashtag value, we don't need it because it doesn't have son. So I'm going to go back behind this formula and then write this formula, which is number. We are checking is number. And then the tooltip tells you what is number does. So is number checks whether a value is a number and returns a true or false. If the value is a number, it says it's true. If it is not a number, it says it's false. So I'm going to put the is number and then I wrap it around the search, or it's an outside function. and then you press the enter key, and then you see we have a bunch of falses and trues. Okay, so where it says a true is what means that there's son or son in the last name. A false means that there is no son in the last name. And then we have a true here, Anderson. Of course, we have Hansen, and then we have another true here for Assonate, Michelle Assonate. So this is where the formula starts from. And then this is the criteria we're actually looking for. We want to look for a true. That's the criteria. And then now we start writing our filter function. So again, we start from the left, the beginning, and then we are wrapping it around the criteria we've already written. So filter, and then open. Now we are writing filter. So look at the tooltip. Again, it has changed. We are writing filter. Filter start with an array. What is the array we are trying to filter? It's all our data set. Okay, the whole data set, and then comma. And then the next is the include. Include, we have already written it. That is what gave us the truths and the falses. So it is there. And then we put in our comma in case we want to put if empty. If empty, what do you want to say? We'll say no person has a name with son in their last name. So we just put no person here. But this data has people with last name having son, so it's never going to return a no person. Okay. All right. So our formula is written. Press the enter key, and then it's completed. You notice that it has filtered all the people with last name having son in them. We have Wilson, Johnson, Anderson, Assonate, Hansen, Jefferson. So Assonate has son in it, so it has filtered only those records. Okay, is just a few records. Now how many? About 15 records. Okay, this could be million rows, and then you have to do the same thing, and it works irrespective of how many rows you have in your data set. So that brings us to the end of this example, and our next example is going to be example number 8. So hold tight. In this example, we are going to take a look at how to use or how to summarize the using the filter function. Okay, so one cool thing about the Excel filter function is that it can not only extract values with conditions, but also summarize the filtered data. For this, we can combine filter with aggregation or aggregation functions such as the sum, the average, the count, the maximum, and the minimum. So for instance, for people greater than 70 years, you want to find the total salary, the average salary, the minimum salary, and then the maximum salary. So the first thing to do is to filter out those people first. And then once we are done, we are going to go ahead and sum their salary. So this begins with the filter function. And then the first input is the array. So the array is going to be what? The salary, because that is what we are going to sum. So it's from E4 to E18, and then bring in the comma. The next is the include. That is where we specify the criteria. So we want to include people whose age is greater than 70. So I select the age and then greater than 70. And then if you like, you can bring in the if empty. For instance, if there's nobody with age 70, what do you want to show? You want to show 0, right? You want to show the sum. It should be 0. But if you sum the people whose ages are more than 70 years and they don't exist, if you sum their ages, it's going to be 0. So I'm going to put if empty 0, and then close the parentheses. Okay. So now it has calculated this for us, but then it's not done yet. We have to sum it. That is why you see that the spill range has some weird stuff here, but we need to sum it because this is just filtered. So we need to put sum at the back. So sum, and then you close the sum. So it has sum all of that. So people whose age is greater than 70, their total salary is what? 587,000, and we can check from here. the ones highlighted in purple have age greater than 70. So let's take a look at it and see if it's more than, if it's equal to 587,000. So once here, just press Ctrl to highlight them separately. And then when you look at the tooltip here, or maybe you look at the tax bar here, it shows down here that the total salary is 587,593, and that is what we show here. Now, we are going to adapt this formula to calculate the average salary, the minimum salary, and then the maximum salary of all these people with ages greater than 70. So instead of rewriting the formula, I'm going to go ahead and copy the sum, copy, and then you press equal to paste it here, and I'm going to paste it in all the cells. You see that they are showing the same thing, so all I have to change is to change the sum to average. So this is the average, and then the next one is the minimum, which is the mean. You're just changing the sum to minimum, and then we have the max. So I'm changing the sum to max. Okay, so again, when you select all the ones with age greater than 70, you can see from down here that the minimum is 53,000, the maximum is 79,000, some 587,000, and then you can see all here. Okay, so that brings us to the end of example 8. Our next example is going to be example 9. In this example, we are going to look at the filter function again, but instead of returning all the columns of the source data, we are only going to return 2 columns. Okay, so in this example, we need to the first name and the last name of people over 70 years. All along, we have been filtering all columns with a single function, but then with this one, we just need a couple of columns, which is just 2 in this case. So I'm going to start writing the formula. So it's going to be equal to filter, and then you select your array, which is going to be the first name and the last name, because that is the only rows that we need, and then comma, and then we select our criteria, which is the include portion. So the criteria is going to be what? Age greater than 70. So I select the age column, and then I bring in my greater than sign, 70, and then if you like, you can just put in the if empty part, which is the last part. It's not compulsory, it's optional, but let me go ahead and put it for demonstration's sake. So comma, and then you can put your no data. You can say, okay, if in case there's nothing returned, we can just put in no data, and then you close it and close the parenthesis, and then you press the enter key. So you notice that this has filtered everybody or all the people with age greater than 70 years, and you can see them highlighted on the left hand side in purple. So anybody in purple has age greater than 70 years, and which is what is filtered right here. So that brings us to the end of example number 9. Our next is example number 10. Now, welcome to the last example, example number 10. Okay, so in this example, we need the first name and the salary of people over 70 years. Like the last example where the first name and the last name was filtered, and the first name and the last name are together, so it was easier for us to just select the first and last. But here's the case: these are non-contiguous columns. Okay, so the first name is what we need, but then look at where the last name is. The last name is on the last column. How do we jump and then show only or filter only the first name in the last column? So I'm going to start writing the formula, and then you take a look at how this is done. So again, it starts with the filter function, and then the first thing is to select the array. Okay, the array is going to be, first of all, we are going to select everything from B to E. Okay, and then comma, and then we specify our include. We specify our include. So the include is going to be what? Age, which is column D. So age greater than 70. Okay, and then we close our parenthesis. Okay, So once we do that, we are going to specify multiple two different sets of filter functions. Okay, so this is the first one. We haven't finished the formula yet. If I press the enter key, you see that it filters everybody more than 70 years. But then look at what it has done. It has filtered everybody and included the age as well as the salary. But we don't want that. We only want the first name and the last name. Okay, so we have to specify some criteria, and we're going to put that criteria in another filter function and then specify if we want to show or we want to retain that column. Okay, now the way this works is that if you want to retain this column, it has to be given a value of true or 1. If you don't want to show it, you give it a value of 0 or false. So I'm going to put in the formula, I'm going to put behind this formula, I'm going to put another filter. So I'm filtering this in place. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put in filter again at the back of this. And then now the array is what we already have. So the array is already in place. That is what we have filtered. That is what the inner filter is doing. And so that is the array. And then comma. Now we need another include. So once the include is put in the curly bracket, it specifies which columns to retain or which rows to retain. So I'm going to put it in the curly bracket. Okay. Now let's take a look at what is that. How is this done? The first column, we want it. So we are going to assign it a value of 1. Okay, 1 means true. So true, we don't want it. And we put in a comma. The second column, we don't. The second column is supposed to be is salary. Okay, which is supposed to be here, the salary. But we have it the last name and then the age. Okay, the last name and the age. We don't need the last name. Okay, so we assign it a value of 0. Okay. Now the third column right here is the age. We don't need the age. So we assign it what? A false, which is 0 again. And then comma. The last column is what we actually need, and that is the salary. Okay, so we assign it a value of 1, true. So because we need it. And then we close it. Okay. And then we close the outer filter as well. Okay. So a 1001 means that we want the first name, we don't want the salary. We don't want the last name here. We don't want the age here. We want the salary. So it's 1001. So once I press the enter key, you see that it has filtered the using double filter. Okay. A filter within a filter. So like a function within a function. It's able to do that. The inner function will bring everything, and then the outer one will just limit it to only the ones we need, which is the first name and the last name, which is 1001 from here, 1001. Okay, so that is what we need. For instance, if I go back and click on this function, you can see what the formula is doing, right? The function arguments, the first array is what we did, and then the second one is the include. When I click inside the include, it tells me that what include is an array of booleans where true represents a row or column to retain. And that is exactly how we are using it. So where 1 means that we want to retain that column. So that is why we have a 1001. Okay. Yeah, 1001. So that brings us to the end of the filter function. We have gone through 10 examples of how to use a filter function, be like a long video. So you can jump to any example that you want, okay, just by using the time markers. Jump to the example that you need, and then because it's about 30 minutes, if you have time you can watch everything, but then if you don't, you can watch one example at a time. At the end of all these 10 examples, you should be able to use the filter function with ease, and you see how amazing it is to use it in your Excel journey. Thanks for watching.